Gowdy of South Carolina will be at the hearing, of course, and he joins us now. Mr. Gowdy, thanks a lot for coming on.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So it does seem, in light of the foreign policy developments of the past month or so, where the United States has assumed a hostile posture toward Russia, that most people have kind of decided, you know, how would Trump be doing the bidding of Vladimir Putin when he and Putin are so at odds? So why, given that, is this going forward?
Well, I think some of the folks initially who thought that that was the motive behind, you have to accept as accurate that Donald Trump colluded and coordinated with the Russians, right, and that they had a motive to help him. So all of those assumptions had to be made before you can then say, but he's taking a more belligerent stance towards Russia, therefore that must not be true. I start at ground zero. What happened in 2016, whether it was Russia or another foreign actor, did they try to interfere with our election? What was our response in 2016? Not 2 months ago, 2016. What did we know? What did we do about it? The felonious dissemination of classified material, to me, is always relevant. Whether it's in the headlines or not, it's always important, and the issue of unmasking is important.
But it does seem like, look, in a world where there's only so much time and so many priorities, in a Congress where, you know, we didn't get a wall passed, Obamacare has not been repealed or replaced, where there are a lot of priorities that the president ran on remain unfulfilled, for the Republicans in the body to pursue it is basically a fever dream from CNN. Seems a little weird.
Well, there are 6 of us, 3 R's and 3 D's, that
right,
kind of been assigned to the task force, and we're all on House intel. So we do have broad jurisdiction, but it doesn't include the border wall, it doesn't include health care, it doesn't include tax reform. We're just intelligence. So whether it's North Korea, whether it's human trafficking in South America, right, it's what we're supposed to do, and providing oversight over the intelligence community is part of it. So the Intel Committee has a robust jurisdiction, but this is part of it. No other committees of Congress, to my knowledge, are holding hearings, not on the House side. And quite frankly, Tucker, we have time. Those of us that are on Intel, we can't talk about we can't talk about North Korea. We can't talk about other things that
right,
we are investigating. This is one of those rare exceptions where we can both do it and then ultimately answer people's questions at the end.
So unless I'm missing something, the only crime that we're pretty certain occurred in the U.S. was the leaking of Michael Flynn's conversations with the Russian ambassador. Is that part of the investigation?
I would say the hacking of the DNC would also constitute a criminal act. So, and the FBI would have jurisdiction over both of those. But I don't think Congress is well equipped to investigate crime. In fact, I know we're not. So the constitutional injury or things that are of significant public interest, there is a role for Congress to play. We're dreadful at investigating crime, and we should not attempt to do so, which is why you don't hear me alleging that people committed crimes. There is a constitutional
It hasn't stopped some
role.
of your colleagues, I notice.
It doesn't, and that disappoints me because I think you ought to wait until all of the evidence is in and then ask the jury to draw whatever conclusion you want. But we only have one reputation, and it is so easy to accuse someone of a criminal act. And we do it, unfortunately, in modern-day culture a lot. It's just unfair to the individual, no matter who's doing it.
I totally agree. Are you confident that Director Comey is stable and trustworthy?
I am. I have a rich and provocative history with Director Comey, dating back to 2016. I prefer to talk to him privately than in public because, in fairness to him, he can't answer most of my questions in public.
Well, he said that hasn't stopped him from making all kinds of provocative public statements and then not explaining them.
I have a rich and provocative history with him. We've agreed on some matters. We've not agreed on some matters. Whether I like it or not, he's a foundational witness. In fact, he touches all 4 tranches of our investigation, and he may be the only witness that does touch everything from felonious dissemination all the way back to when did the Bureau initiate their investigation. So he's foundational. It's not fair to ask him questions in public when I know he cannot answer them.
Yes.
And then from him, we'll develop other witness leads and documents that we need.
I'd like to ask him a few questions in public, but I don't think he's coming on.
You should have him on your show.
I don't think
you
he's
just got to tell him which hour you're on, because it's switched.
We'll try. Congressman Gowdy, great to see you tonight. Thank you for that.
It was yesterday and now today. South Carolina Republican Trey Gowdy on the House Intelligence Committee will be questioning him behind closed doors. And, sir, welcome back to America's Newsroom. Repeatedly yesterday, the FBI director answered this way to questions on the Hill.
That's not a question I can answer in this forum, Mr. Chairman, because it would call for a classified response. I have briefed leadership of the intelligence committees on that particular issue, but I can't talk about it here. To react to that, I have to give a classified answer, and I can't give it sitting here. I can't answer that here. Yeah, that's not something I think I can comment on.
So there you have it. What's your question today?
Well, I've got a bunch, and we're going to do it in a classified setting so we can ask all of them. Bill, he is a foundational witness that touches all tranches of Russia and masking and unmasking and the dissemination of classified information. He really is a foundational seminal witness. So I'm going to start at the beginning. What is the evidence that Russia attempted to interfere with our 2016 democratic process? We're going to walk through that. Is there any evidence to tie the Trump campaign to that? And if there is, you need to tell us what it is. And then we're going to get into the masking and unmasking and the dissemination of classified information. We won't get it all done today. Make no mistake. He is a foundational seminal witness, but today we'll get started.
2 hours ago, President Trump tweeted the following. Susan Rice, the former National Security Advisor to President Obama, is refusing to testify before a Senate subcommittee next week on allegations of unmasking Trump transition officials. Not good, he concludes. She has rejected the invitation to appear publicly on Monday. What do you make of her case, Susan Rice?
Well, there are a couple of things there. She rejected an invitation. There are other ways to invite people other than via letter. There are things called subpoenas. You shouldn't have to use them with a former national security advisor, but if you do, you do. Susan Rice is also a very important witness. It may be that she concluded that public setting would not enable her to answer the questions that the senators are going to have, which is why we're going behind closed doors today. That's where most of these interviews ought to take place, given the subject matter. But she's a really important witness. And I'll say this, Bill, members of Congress don't pick the witnesses. Lawyers don't pick witnesses. The facts pick the witnesses. And whether Ambassador Rice likes it or not, she's a really important fact witness.
Well, Democrats would argue James Comey screwed up. Should have kept his mouth shut, not gone public in late October. Are they right?
I don't know what doors Director Comey saw. I can tell you this, he's not the reason. I don't think he told Secretary Clinton to have her own server. I don't think he told her to give disingenuous answers to questions throughout the campaign. I don't think he told Anthony Weiner to communicate via text with underage girls. So I don't see how any of this is Jim Comey's fault. He's got a really tough job. Someone was going to criticize him no matter what he did. He did what he thought was right. But I reject the notion that Jim Comey is the reason that we have President Trump. Secretary Clinton at some point ought to do a little self-reflection and go back and reflect on her own decisions, which led Director Comey to have to make the call he did.
Take you back to last July, Phoenix, Arizona, on the tarmac. James Comey brought it up yesterday. He answered it this way.
The capper was, and I'm not picking on the Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, who I like very much, but her meeting with President Clinton on that airplane was the capper for me.
How does that change now in light of where we are today on your investigation?
Well, it doesn't impact our investigation. We have a new Attorney General. Loretta Lynch is gone. The decision to meet with the spouse of the target of an ongoing criminal investigation, you know in your first year of law school not to do that. So Loretta Lynch is going to have to explain her thought process there. Director Comey says that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I have no reason to contradict him.
Do you think that was the original sin in all of this?
I don't know. I don't know what the original sin was. It was a very complicated fact pattern, exacerbated by the fact that we were in the throes of a presidential election. Director Comey felt the need to update Congress on his previous testimony, and he thought this was the way to do it. But again, Bill, who is responsible for the entire fact pattern up to that decision? It's not Jim Comey's fault that Loretta Lynch met with Bill Clinton, and it's not his fault that she had this curious email arrangement with herself. I'm blaming the warden.
That means in every answer you're given, the original sin comes back to Hillary Clinton's server. Because had she not set it up, we would not be where we are today. That's what you're saying.
I'm reluctant to use theological terms like original sin, but that decision to have her own unique email arrangement with herself and then keep it quiet for 2 years was a really bad decision.
Sir, thank you for your time. Trey Gowdy on the Hill. It's not over today. That's what you say, right? How much longer?
That's right. Well, we're just starting today. We've got perhaps 100 witnesses we need to talk to, and we're going to get through 2 of them today. We're going to do it the right way, and however long it takes to be able to tell your viewing audience what happened last year, that's how long it'll take.
Thank you for being here. Trey Gowdy,
Yes,
as
sir.
he goes behind closed doors. Thank you.
For the FBI. Joining us now, Republican Congressman Trey Gowdy of South Carolina. He's a key member of both the Intelligence and Judiciary Committee. Senator, thanks so much for joining us.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
What did you think of the testimony from the FBI director on Capitol Hill today?
Same thing I thought this time last fall. He has a very difficult job. Tough facts make for tough conclusions. I do understand the frustration of my friends on the other side. But the reality is, I think Secretary Clinton is primarily responsible for the position that Director Comey found himself in. But I do admit difficult facts make for unusual conclusions.
You serve on the Intelligence Committee in the House. The top Democrat on that committee, Adam Schiff, he had this to say about Comey's testimony in a tweet. Real choice was not conceal or speak. Comey spoke about Clinton and concealed Trump investigation. Real choice was to abide by DOJ, Department of Justice, policy or violate. So he's suggesting there was a double standard. Do you agree with him?
Well, I think it was an unusual case. Keep in mind, Loretta Lynch recused herself, or at least removed herself. Wasn't a formal recusal because she met on the tarmac with a spouse of a suspect of an ongoing investigation. So every part of it was difficult. This is the way I would kind of distinguish those two fact patterns. He told us at the end of the investigation that he was not going to pursue charges against Secretary Clinton. That's a little bit different than having that conversation on the front end of the investigation, although in this case, he has told us on the front end, he told us last time we had a public hearing, that there was an investigation, either intelligence or quasi-criminal investigation, into matters surrounding Russia's efforts to interfere with our election. I viewed his press conference with Secretary Clinton as explaining his non-charging decision. If he wants to do that at the end of the investigation with Russia, he's welcome to do so. It's unusual to have that press conference on the front end of an investigation.
The president tweeted last night ahead of today's testimony, I'll put it up on the screen, FBI Director Comey was the best thing that ever happened to Hillary Clinton, and that he gave her a free pass for many bad deeds. The phony Trump-Russia story was an excuse used by the Democrats as justification for losing the election. Perhaps Trump just ran a great campaign. Do you agree with the president's claim, Congressman, that Director Comey gave Hillary Clinton a, quote, free pass?
Well, I don't know what he means by free pass. I disagree with Director Comey, and there's a tape to back it up on his interpretation of the elements required to make a successful prosecution. We had quite a lengthy conversation about intent. Keep in mind, Director Comey didn't say the elements of that offense were not met. He said she lacked the intent to break the law, which, as you probably know, Wolf, is rarely proven with direct evidence, almost always circumstantial evidence. I do disagree with Director Comey's conclusion. I don't know what the president meant by free pass. I think the press conference that Director Comey gave was an attempt to explain an unusual conclusion, which is you meet the elements of the offense, but we're not going to prosecute you regardless because we can't the issue of specific intent.
What about the president's claim that this whole Trump-Russia investigation, in the president's word, is phony?
Our investigation is not phony, Wolf. There are 4 tranches to it. I'm happy that we have begun. We need access to all of the documents, but anytime a foreign power seeks to interfere or influence the outcome of our election, that is an American issue to me. It is not a political issue. So too with the unmasking of U.S. persons' names, and so too with the dissemination of classified information. I think all of these tranches are really important. I am glad that the committee is back on track to the extent some people thought it was not. We have Comey and Rogers tomorrow. I'm excited to spend 3 hours with them and excited to interview the witnesses that have access to relevant information, which includes most members of Congress and lots of the other people that are pontificating about this issue. I want to talk to people who actually have access to facts.
Does it disturb you, Congressman, that the president disagrees not only with you but with the intelligence community when he says, you know what, it could have been China, it could have been someone else who interfered in that hacking effort. He's not convinced it's Russia. Does that bother you?
Wolf, I have never met nor talked to President Trump, ever. You and I have talked more tonight than I have. I've never met or talked to him, so I don't know what he means. The problem with tweets for me is it's hard to unlock the mysteries of the world in 140 characters. I can't do it. So there aren't follow-up questions. There aren't requests to extrapolate on what you meant. I don't know what he meant by that. I can tell you this, any foreign government, and in this instance Russia, but you can insert any country you want that attempts to interfere with our democratic process, that is an American issue. Now, having said that, some of my colleagues in this line of work love to jump to the conclusion without going through the process of identifying facts and quoting anonymous sources and referencing newspaper articles. You would be laughed out of any courtroom in America if you did that. So it's a serious accusation. Let's have a correspondingly serious investigation. Give me the documents, give me the witnesses, and at the end, Wolf, you and I may draw different conclusions, but at least we should have access to the same facts.
I suspect that you're going to be hearing from the White House. He's going to invite you over. Now that you've pointed out you haven't really had a substantive conversation. Get ready for that invitation. He might be watching us for all we know right now. Let's get to another issue. As you know, the chairman of your Oversight Committee, Jason Chaffetz, he's resigning from Congress. Would you be interested in pursuing the chairmanship of that committee?
Well, Wolf, he is not going to run for re-election. He may or may not serve out this term. He had surgery last week. He's recovering. He's doing well. So I don't know if there's going to be a vacancy. I have never looked in the mirror and saw the chairperson of a committee before, but I am interested in all three facets of the Oversight and Government Reform Committee. I am interested in oversight, but I'm also interested in the reform. I would need to talk to my colleagues and have a frank conversation with them about whether or not they thought I had the requisite characteristics they were looking for. So we'll see when and if Jason leaves during this term, but my immediate concern is his well-being. He's a very good friend. I care about him as a person. I want him to get better, and if he serves out this term, more power to him, and if he doesn't, then I'll come back on and you and I can discuss it.
Yeah, we hope his surgery on his foot was successful as well. I know he's coming back for this vote. Speaking of this vote, the health care bill in the House of Representatives, do you expect that there will be a yay, 216 votes that will allow this bill to go forward to the U.S. Senate?
Wolf, if I knew the answer to that question, I would probably go buy a lottery ticket in South Carolina. I don't. Being in leadership is an impossible job, which is why so few of us raise our hands and volunteer. I don't know if we have the requisite number of votes, and I frankly am not smart enough to know the politics of calling for a vote if you don't have the requisite number of votes. I know that people are working awfully hard on it, and I assume that they are working in good faith, both the more moderate wing of our conference and also the Freedom Caucus. I know leadership is working very hard. Our committee chairman produced a product. So I hope we have a vote, but I don't know that anybody can tell you whether that vote will take place tomorrow.
Do you believe it will do enough to help South Carolinians in your district who have pre-existing conditions get through and have the adequate medical treatment and insurance they need?
Well, Wolf, I have some of those people in my very own family, and I have met with scores of people since January whose families are in that exact same condition. I don't know a single Republican that does not want to take care of people with pre-existing conditions. I am fine for my friends on the other side of the aisle or the other side of this issue to question the legislative product. Where I do draw the line is on us questioning one another's motives. I don't know a member of the House, from Joey Kennedy, who happens to be a friend, to Mark Meadows in the Freedom Caucus, that doesn't want to take care of sick people who have pre-existing conditions and allow them the opportunity to have continuous service at a rate they can afford. The means by which we get there, reasonable minds can differ, but you can put me in the take care of people with pre-existing conditions category.
Let me just press you, Congressman, yes or no? Does the current legislation that you're going to vote on maybe as early as tomorrow take care of people with pre-existing conditions?
If it didn't, I wouldn't vote for it, Wolf.
So you're going to vote for it?
Yes, sir.
Congressman